I don't normally make rant videos, but this is going to be a rant video. I have had enough of the telemetry page on Star Citizen website, and I'm going to tell you why you should ignore it. Let's get into it. So here we are, the telemetry page, my most despised page on the Star Citizen website. I'm not sure that's true, but I had such high hopes for this page when I first heard about this, and it's been in the game a while, but I am now at this point thoroughly fed up, and I'm going to tell you why. If you've never used this page before, it basically they receive and analyze FPS data from every machine playing Star Citizen every hour, and then they put it into this graph here, and these squares all represent different specs and FPS numbers. So you click on these squares and they tell you how different parts will perform. Now, in my experience, often this just doesn't update. So I change my PC parts around fairly often for the testing of this channel, and I just find that they don't. This page just doesn't change. Whatever I've tested, my results haven't changed. But I think what we've got here, if we find my result, I have to click on display outlying data to find where I am. And we've got, here is my dot. And I have, well, none of these CPUs, which is part of the problem, but I do have a 3080 graphics card. So there we go. We've got this magical number, 67.7 FPS. This is my number one gripe. The FPS numbers here, there's no kind of relation to anything in the game. Like, what does that mean? Where in the game is that tested? What does that mean? If I have these parts, should I expect that everywhere in the game? And the answer to that is definitely not. But if this basically here, these two lines come together is what Star Citizen is recommended as a kind of recommended spec, which, as if you've been following anything I've been saying, recommended spec for Star Citizen is completely wrong. What's on the website is a load of rubbish, and you should watch my videos instead, and that will tell you. But these graphics cards, these CPUs are all drastically different. We've seen from my own testing that there's no way that the 2700X performs anywhere near the same as the 5600X. We know that. We've done testing between the Ryzen generations. We know that the 5600X will blow the 2700X away, and likely will also completely blow away this mobile laptop CPU. The graphics cards I don't really have an issue with. The graphics cards are all fine. I think how they calculate graphical power seems to be fine. Those cards will perform relatively close together, although again, the 3060 will perform much better than the 3060 laptop version. So my main problem here, if we come over to my result, is that I don't have any of those CPUs, but it is calculated that my 5800X 3D with all the crazy cache is the same as the 5800, and that is a big problem because we know from the testing that I've done that the 5800X 3D absolutely destroys the 5900X that I have tested it against. And so if you come over to here, we click on my CPU score, I've only got a CPU score of 201 despite actually having the fastest CPU for Star Citizen at the moment. The GPU score obviously is high because the 3080, it seems to be able to calculate that. So if we go up this scale here, we can keep clicking on these. If the CPU score goes up on the left and the GPU down on the bottom. So really what it's saying here, when we get to the highest CPU score, it's saying that it's a Threadripper 3970X, which just won't be true. That will not perform anywhere near as well as the card that I've got, and that is kind of reflected in the fact that the average FPS score over here is much lower, despite the game being mostly CPU bound. And even if we click on the same GPU tier as mine, so that's a 3080, for some reason it's ranking the 3970X as much higher and gives it a 675 CPU score, despite the fact that the frame rate will be lower. And again, we're saying that frame rate doesn't mean much, but despite the fact that there's no way that Threadripper CPU will be outperforming the 5800X 3D that I have, which they've given a terrible CPU score to. Now you might say, well, Dave, you're just getting cross because your CPU isn't at the top of the list, and I honestly don't care about that in any way. What I care about is that people will use this page as a tool to try and help them buy hardware for this game, to try and get into the game, and I just don't think it's any good at all. I just think it's useless. The GPUs maybe, but again, even these FPS scores are are just a load of rubbish. If we click down here on this square, which is the bare minimum spec according to CRG, that isn't actually so bad. I was expecting that to be worse. That's my recommended lowest CPU, the 8400 i5 there. The 9400F will basically perform the same. It's just got a bit of a small clock increase because it's basically the same CPU. I doubt very much that laptop CPU will perform particularly well, but anyway. But these GPUs are borderline. That's not. Do you know what? I'll pause my rant to say that actually, if you were to go out and buy this parts, you wouldn't get 30 FPS everywhere, but it wouldn't be the worst. That's not terrible. But in general, thumbs down from me for the telemetry page, or at least CRG, please redo your CPU calculation because it's just way off at the moment and doesn't tell anybody anything. Just having loads of cores, well, the Threadripper ones, doesn't do anything for in-game performance. The game doesn't scale past a certain point at this stage, and so I would hate for people to go out there and say, oh, look at this CPU score, I'm going to go out and get a massive Threadripper CPU with hundreds and hundreds of cores and I'll have great performance, because that just won't be the case. Single threaded performance and seemingly having tons of level 3 cache seems to be the way to go. At least that's what we're seeing with 5800X3D. Please CRG, fix the CPU calculation. Give us maybe more information for the FPS. That would be quite interesting if you could tell us where those calculations were done. Maybe if there is one that you just do in space, or if you do one in the city. Or best case scenario, really, we'd love to see, or I'd love to see, maybe nobody else would, but I would personally love to see an in-game benchmark somehow. Something that you could load into and do some testing with. That would be wonderful. So that's enough of this very unusual video for this channel. Normally we're about technical performance starters, and which kind of this is, but this had a more of a rant nature to it, which I don't think I've ever done before, but there we go. But that's enough. If you liked it, like it. Subscribe if you like this technical look at Star Citizen. I'll see you soon. Bye.